No death for diversity. How DEI is being rebranded, not disbanded. That's a good headline, actually. Orange Man is back in the White House and swinging a sledgehammer at DEI. But the blows he's dealt and the end to diversity training mandates, race-conscious hiring in the government, aka racism, and funding of DEI programming target only federal initiatives for now. I don't think they're allowed to do anything in the private sector per se. Although you can start attaching benefits to it, like that's how the government forced DEI on the private sector in the first place. Like, oh, hey, you want this tax cut? Well, it's conditional on these DEI requirements. Orange Man should be able to do the opposite. Like, hey, you want this tax cut? This only goes to non-DEI companies. That's one way to make the private sector bend the knee. So leaving racist programs outside the government untouched. In other words, the death of diversity, equity, and inclusion has been greatly exaggerated. Yeah, plus it's just being rebranded anyway. Now, Orange Man thought ahead, and in his executive order, he did pretty much close those loopholes. But first, you have to find them. Like, there's a lot of government organizations that aren't under as much of a microscope as the big public ones. So you're not going to have you're not going to rebrand and suddenly have like 20 people instantly talking about it. McDonald's, for instance, has not abandoned its DI agenda despite declarations to the contrary. On January 6th, the fast food giant announced it was evolving its diversity team to the global inclusion team, claiming the name change was more fitting for McDonald's in light of our inclusion value and it better aligns with this team's work. So they literally just rebranded. It's just the same shit under a different name. Because the DEI has a bad reputation now, so we're just going to call it belonging or something. The choice of date wasn't accidental. While the nation was fixated on the anniversary of the Capitol protest, McDonald's slipped this shift under the radar, knowing it would be lost in the noise. Yeah, they do that on purpose. McDonald's move is not a retreat. It's a recalibration, a calculated attempt to dodge political backlash while maintaining the same ideological agenda. And that's also why, like, not only do you got to keep them under a microscope like this, pay attention to what they actually make. Like, I guess it would be a lot harder with something like McDonald's than with entertainment. But all these entertainment companies that claim they're ditching wokeness, but they're not really, it'll be pretty apparent when they're still releasing the same dog shit. It'll be pretty obvious that the DEI is still running strong. McDonald's is not alone in this ideological shape-shifting. Starbucks, once a champion of DEI, no longer ties executive bonuses to diversity goals following shareholder pressure and backlash from conservative groups. No, from normal people. Duolingo and JetBlue recently framed DEI as a business risk in their latest corporate filings, a sharp pivot from moral imperative to liability management. This is absolutely true and brilliant right there. And it was always a liability. It's just like previously they were trying to sell it as, it's for the greater good. It's worth it. Now, not so much, huh? But this doesn't mean DI has died at those corporate giants. Not at all. Duolingo continues to publish pieces on his blog aimed at promoting diversity and indoctrination. Maybe they have a contract that requires them to do that for a while. While Starbucks' website now proudly dedicates itself to inclusion, diversity, and belonging. And diversity, equity, and inclusion is out. So inclusion, diversity, and belonging is the new thing now. Now, fuck you. Seriously, fuck you. Sad that some people will fall for this, though. JetBlue, despite those filings, is still prominently promoting DI initiatives on its website. It's a game of deception, not a genuine transformation. They want to make it look like they're capitulating without actually doing it. But they don't want to make it look like they're capitulating too much because then the woke are going to turn on them. Which would be like only 697 people, but they make it out like it's a lot. Kind of weird. Of course, one cannot discuss DEI without mentioning its place of origin, academia. Someone knows. Universities are now masters of the rebranding game. Louisiana State University's Division of Inclusion, Civil Rights, and Title IX recently morphed into the Division of Engagement, Civil Rights, and Title IX. Yeah, just change one word. It's totally different now. The department funds and supports programs like the African American Cultural Center, Alphabet Soup Center, and Whammon Center, which promote identity-based initiatives. So, pretty much discriminatory, ism-phobic shit. But these guys are fine. They're okay with this. At the University of Oklahoma, meanwhile, Diversity Office now operates as the Division of Access and Opportunity. Diversity czar at Kennesaw State University in Georgia now flaunts the inflated title Vice President of Organizational Effectiveness, Leadership Development, and Inclusive Excellence. God, man, Orange Man needs to implement those same policies. He needs to find a way to have it enforceable in the private sector in addition to the public sector. That, or anything that even does anything remotely like what this shit does, just to catch these fucking snakes. Utah Valley University's Office of Inclusion and Diversity has morphed into the Office of Institutional Engagement and Effectiveness. Even MIT still plays the DEI game. What do you mean, even MIT? Haven't they been doing this from the start? Admissions essays now ask students to describe efforts to make spaces inclusive and diverse, despite banning similar statements for incoming faculty last spring. Until they're outright forced to do it for students too, they're not gonna. Yeah, this is one of those things that they only begrudgingly did it for faculty in the first place. It's going to be the same with the student-facing stuff. They're going to have to be forced into it, or else it's never going to happen. In academia, equity, a commitment that to enforce sameness, not excellence, reigns supreme. Should anyone be surprised? Nah, we already knew all this. Over the past few years, the university has poured enormous sums into building bloated, DEI-driven bureaucracies. Indeed, according to Ilya Shapiro, the author of the recent book, Lawless, the Misdirection of America's Elites, the University of Michigan spent more than $30 million on DEI initiatives in current year -2. And that's just a single school during a single school year. Man, just think of how many stadiums that could have built. I know that's what they care about more than anything. American academia is not going to simply dismantle these structures or fire their armies of administrators. It's far easier to hand out new job titles and shove them into offices with new names. Yeah, they're gonna keep doing this until they can no longer get away with it. Like that should be obvious by now. This brings us to the multi-million-dollar question. What could the president do to ensure the death of DEI at both the federal and nationwide levels? Okay, let's hear it, because I'd like to know this too. First, he must anchor his anti-DEI policies in legislation, suiting them for future administrations' whims. Oh, 100% true. It needs to be a law that's passed by Congress, because then it'll be a lot harder to remove it. Like executive orders can be repealed with another executive order, easy. But it's not so much like with a law. It has to be repealed by another law, basically. Executive orders can be overturned. Laws are harder to dismantle. Orange Man could also draft laws barring federal agencies and contractors from using taxpayer dollars for DEI training. So even the sneakily worded ones, universities relying on federal funding could be required to prioritize merit over DEI criteria or in admissions and hiring. Additionally, a new oversight task force, perhaps a DOGE-like unit, could monitor DEI practices nationwide, enforcing compliance and imposing penalties for violations. Yeah, they wanted something like this. Let's give it to them. Oh, but they only wanted it against us. Huh? Well, too bad. Too bad. We don't play that. Companies and universities enforcing DEI could face audits, contract losses, and sanctions. Action is overdue, especially as Apple and Microsoft, two of America's most powerful companies, double down against Orange Man's new directives and prioritize quotas over qualifications. Well, if they really want to die, that's fine. Even these giants can be replaced. It'll be tough, but it's not impossible. The fight for meritocracy is a battle to reclaim the foundation of American excellence. Without bold action, DEI will keep evolving, embedding itself further in the government, academia, and corporate America. And to truly overhaul DEI, Orange Man, you need to use more than a sledgehammer. You need a scalpel and the courage to cut deep. Yeah, actually, I would say start with the nuclear bombs. And then you go in there with a fucking fine-tooth comb to make sure you got everything.